Thank you both for joining. Thank you, Romeo, for being on Sembra's growth series. This is episode 5 and really our first growth series of the year. We took a little bit of a pause at Sembra with growth series and we wanted to bring it back as a free resource for our community. For those that are new to Sembra or the Sembra channel, these growth series are posted on our YouTube channel. So many of you will be watching this on YouTube. And these sessions are really to provide, again, education and resources to our community across a variety of topics. Sembra is a diversity, equity, and inclusion focused 501c3 and consulting firm, but we also really want to make sure that we are an avenue and a channel for social topics that are critical in our communities, especially communities of color. And as we were thinking about kind of what our next session would look like, we decided to really tap into our own community with Romeo, who will be sharing some of his story and his journey from a financial wellness perspective, but also just really the correlation between our experience and cultural background related to how we view money, and in this case, our Lana, right? And ensuring that we are setting up that foundation for ourselves as we grow and look to invest our dollars or even grow our mindset around money. And so with that, I will hand it over to Romeo just to introduce himself and just give more on his background.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmine. So first of all, I just want to thank you, Jasmine, and Sembra for this opportunity to just share, like you said, knowledge and resources and just firsthand experience. Um, so I'm 31 years old. I'm Mexican. I'm married and I have a 2.5-year-old son. And I work in the finance field. And then I'm obviously a financial wellness coach as well. I'm also an entrepreneur. I am a real estate investor as well. And then I'm a podcast co-host with my sister who's on the call. That's Elevated Platicas. So you guys can find us on Instagram and YouTube as well. Um, so yeah, so I'm into quite a few things. I've always kind of been like that. I have various interests, and I'm really just exploring my passions and just really diving into those a lot more. And so yeah, I just really wanted to do this because yeah, this is very much needed in our community. Like you said, people of color don't have as much access to resources, information, education. So that's the reason why we are doing this.
Great. Thank you. And I know that you just personally, after, knowing you for a little bit, you definitely approach financial well-being and just talking about it from a very authentic place and a place that's really personal to you. But for those who have not met you and don't know you, could you just maybe start a little bit almost like your perspective, right? Like, where does it come from? Maybe sharing like where your journey with financial wellness started, um, whether that be in the past or just where it all stemmed from. And if you kind of walk us through then to where you're at now, that you're able to really speak about it and really come from a really authentic lens, if you can like walk us through that journey for yourself and for others to understand.
Yeah. So my journey with becoming passionate about finance started when I was around 19. So I had just moved to Chicago. I moved here straight out of high school. So I graduated and moved here. So it really started around that time, like I said, when I was 19. And I really just started reading books on finance. And that's kind of just how it started. And then doing research on my own, just wanting to educate myself more about finance because really I had no education on finance. So I just knew that it was important for me to learn more about. And so the more I learned about it, the more I continued to just get more interested and more passionate about finance, because I started to learn just a little bit and I saw how important it was. So it was kind of like a snowball effect. Once I learned a little bit, I wanted to learn a lot more. And then eventually I wanted to just, you know, be able to share that knowledge with my family as well, and the community, because I figured if I didn't know these things, there must be a lot of other people who don't know these things, and other people who may not be genuinely interested in finance and just won't take the initiative to, you know, pick up a book and read it or listen to a podcast. So that's really where it started for me. And over the years, I just continued to educate myself. Eventually, I started working in finance. I started working at Chase around 2018. So that was when I actually started working in corporate finance. So my passion with finance really just came more out of a personal need. And then obviously later on professionally, I started to work in finance as well. And then I would say my journey with financial wellness really started within the last like 2 years. I didn't even know what financial wellness was. Obviously, I knew about financial literacy, I knew about investing and things like that, but I didn't know what financial wellness was. And so I started to educate myself on that more. And then last year is when I took that step to get my certification and become a coach. Um, and I knew that I wanted to take a little bit different approach, because I had actually been approached by Northwestern Mutual before, to be a financial advisor. And I knew what a financial advisor was, but I kind of wanted to take a different route, because with financial advisors, no matter where you work, you seem to be at least tied to, in a sense, to certain products that you're selling. And so I just never wanted to be kind of tied down to what I could recommend to people. I wanted to just truly be able to offer what is best for people. Um, and also, financial wellness goes a lot deeper than just the finance. So, just to kind of paint a picture of what financial wellness is, financial wellness involves addressing psychological factors, emotional factors as it relates to money. So I think too often people think about money and they just think, bank accounts, investment accounts, and numbers, right? But to me, finance is way more than that. Actually, I would argue that finance is less about numbers and all of that stuff, and it's way more about emotions and psychology than people think or realize. So financial wellness, again, it's something newer for me that I have recently discovered, and now I'm super passionate about sharing it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think it's also an important point you bring up, like the difference between financial literacy and financial wellness, right? And I really, we look at financial literacy when it comes to tools, and it sounds like you did a lot of that pre-work to really educate yourself and understand what do numbers look like. And then also, you coming from a finance background, you already had some of that literacy building up, right? But when we talk about the wellness piece, it's much more about our viewpoint, our mindset, what experience we have with it, what biases, does that come with, right? And so I think that's a really strong tie. When you talk about you personally and like your viewpoint on money, what does that look like? Like, what comes to mind when you think about just how you manage your money and how you advise others?
Yeah, so it definitely is very different for everybody. And it does take a lot of work to establish that money mindset. And I think also for me, I recently discovered as well, like money values. And so to me, that is what sort of is my compass for my finances and my goals. And that's what sort of drives everything. So for me, I really look at it as what are my money values? And then my goals need to align with those values. So for me, my money values are freedom, health, and experiences. So freedom is just, I want to get to a point in time where I have freedom to choose to do what I want with my time. I don't want to be tied down to a job or whatever it might be. I want to be able to choose, hey, I'm doing this because I want to do it. I have more time to spend with my family, whatever it might be. I want freedom to choose to do with my time what I want to do. And then my other value is experiences. So that could be traveling, that could be just doing fun stuff with my family. Experiences take money. And so that is one of my values as well. And then the other one is health. I have had a lot of problems with my back since I've been in high school. And so I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars every year basically since then. So I understand from firsthand experience that health is something that I need to plan for. And it's not really something that is a negotiable. It's something that I have to do. So I want to be able to invest in my health and in my wife's health, my son's health, and that takes money as well. So I never want to be in a position where I have to pick and choose. Well, I can afford this, but not that. I can afford good food, but not good medicine or good wellness treatments, whatever it might be. Um, so that's really sort of how I filter my mindset around money, and my goals as well.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing like your personal goals and values. That's the first time I've really heard like having values tied to money. What would you say, and this is a little bit just a, follow-up question to what you just shared. The idea of having values seems so great, right? That we have these buckets that we want to focus on. Like for me, one area is I really want to do, home improvements, and that costs money, right? And that's something I want to focus on this year, in addition to other things that I'm doing, like paying down debt and rebuilding my savings after being laid off. So I guess my point is there's always a lot that we're going through as humans, whether it's implications on finances. Maybe we have a family member who needs help. And I do think that comes with the cultura that, there's certain things that we can't escape. How would you advise or maybe like share tips on prioritizing that? Like, how do you prioritize your values, but then things that have to get done or that you really can't get around that need to get paid for, and it might interfere with those values?
Yeah, I think it all starts with a good budget. And, I think anytime people hear budget, they are like, okay, bills, things you have to pay, like you said. And it has a negative connotation, right? But I think we need to reframe a budget by also including positive things. So budget for fun stuff. If you like eating out, budget for that. If you want to go to a concert next month, budget for it. You don't have to just budget for the bills and the annoying stuff that you have to pay. You can also budget for the fun things. And so I would recommend a zero-based budget, which essentially is you are accounting for every single dollar that you make. Now, for someone like you who owns their own business, their income fluctuates. That can be a little bit harder month to month. But if you have a W-2 job, it's a little bit more predictable, so it's a little bit easier to really dial in that budget. But again, the concept of a zero-based budget is you're accounting for every dollar. So you have a certain amount that goes towards rent or mortgage, a certain amount goes towards your car, utilities, insurance, and then again, you can put in those fun things. eating out, whatever it might be, So you can also build in those fun things, but the key is to make sure that every dollar is accounted for. And, also throw savings in there, investing, whatever amount goes towards those things. But again, the idea is to make sure you're accounting for every dollar, because if you don't, chances are you're going to spend it on something that you probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm smiling because that's so me. Like, and I have a budget that I use, a budget template, and sometimes like you veer off the budget, right?
Yeah.
Because there might be dollars that like you're not accounting for. Is that
And
something that you help like your clients through, like the budgeting and also like determining their values and where they're spending their money? It's kind of a holistic approach.
yeah, and that's why I have, the programs that I have, because um, in my opinion, you need to go in the correct steps to identify what your true money mindset is, establish those values, establish a budget that aligns with those things, and then start implementing them. And so, with the budget, I was also going to say, because you're budgeting for the fun stuff, it also makes it easier for you to not be guilty about those things, which I think is important. Because I think as Latinos, like, we tend to have a lot of guilt around like splurging, whether it's shopping or going out to eat or spending on some new shoes. We tend to feel guilty about that stuff. But if you're budgeting for it, hey, this is built into my budget. It's covered in my budget. So I don't need to feel guilty about it. I can enjoy it.
Yeah. No, I love that as a reminder not to feel guilty and, own it, right? Like, this is how much I'm allotting for that this month or in the next 2 months. And I think that it can be very up to you and what feels good for you.
Mhm.
And this is a good segue because I wanted to ask, like, what are some of those cultural norms and I would say patterns that we see being people of color or Latino, even first gen? I think there's so many different lenses that you could look at it. I can definitely speak from a first gen experience, but there's so much that we are juggling from a finance perspective with little generational wealth or
Yeah.
maybe even none at all. So I guess what has been like your observations on that? And I know you just explained a really great example around guilt, but what are some of the themes you've seen and how have you really addressed those through the coaching and just your findings?
Yeah, so I'll go through a couple. The first one that I have observed is we get so caught up in working hard as Latinos because that's what we've been taught, right? Our parents, most of us, they're immigrants. They came to this country and they got ahead by working hard. And so we were taught that same lesson, right? Work hard for what, to get ahead. And not that that's a bad thing, but it can become a bad thing because we're so focused on working hard that we don't really think, are we working smart? You know, can
Mm.
I educate myself to learn something that will make this easier, right? Can I put my money to work for me? That's not working hard. That's just working smart. So I think too often we might get caught up in like, I just need to work hard. I need to grind. I need to work more hours. And of course, good things in life come with hard work, but we also have to learn to work smart at a certain level. And I think as Latinos, like we might have that disposition that, especially I'm sure a lot of you can relate with your parents. You might tell them about an investment product or something, and they'll just be like, no, ¿qué es eso? Ponte a trabajar y ya, like, no arriesgues tu dinero, or, like they can kind of think that way. They don't see that as like something that is going to yield results for you because all they know is hard work. So if we want to get to a better place, we have to do different things. So that's one of the first things that I would say. The other thing is, as I just mentioned it, we tend to be more risk averse. We have a more risk averse mindset because of, again, our parents. They likely immigrated to this country, so yeah, they really couldn't take a lot of risks. They just had to, again, work hard, save their money. They really couldn't afford to take those risks. But again, if we're trying to create wealth, it's going to take risk. I mean, you can look at any millionaire, billionaire person who has had success. They've all lost millions. They've all, done bad deals. They've all lost businesses. So it just takes risks. That's just a part of the game. But you have to be smart enough to know which risks to take. And you have to just understand that investing comes with risk. And that's where, a good coach comes in, and they can give you a good strategy so that you aren't risking so much that it becomes a detriment to your investment. So that's another thing I think that can turn into a mindset that holds us back sometimes. Another one is imposter syndrome. This is something I struggle with a lot. And I think it has a lot to do with the reality is, like, we are expanding into different spaces and we're growing to different levels that we're not accustomed to, right? So, if we're not trying to stay in that box of Latino immigrants, we're going to feel uncomfortable because we're moving into different spaces where we might feel like we don't belong. But if we want to see ourselves there, we want to see people of color, and we want to see our community there, we have to be more comfortable stepping into those spaces. But like I said, that's something I struggle with, and I constantly have to, just remind myself, like, hey, I'm not an imposter. I'm just trying to grow. I'm trying to do things, for my family that nobody has done. So yeah, I might feel like an imposter, but I just have to know that it's because I'm trying to grow. And the last one I want to mention is, again, we are doing a lot of things that have not been done in our family. Maybe you were the first person to go to college. Maybe you were the first person to become an entrepreneur, start a business. So there is a lack of role models for us and lack of guidance, right? We don't have that example that we can look to and say, okay, what did this person do? How did they do it? Again, because we're trying to reach new heights, there's really no template or anything that we can go to. And so it does often feel scary and uncomfortable. But again, I think when I remind myself that, hey, I'm doing this because I'm trying to level up and I'm trying to do something in my family that's never been done before, that's why I'm feeling this way.
Yeah. Thank you for all of those. Imposter syndrome is one that shows up in a variety of industries, and, especially in industries that there's not many of us represented, right? And so it creates this feeling that either we're not good enough, or, like you said, we don't belong here. But I really do feel it's a lot of society telling us that we don't belong there, versus we need to shift the narrative that we are skilled, qualified, smart enough to be in whatever situation we want to put ourselves in. And it's really up to us to start making those moves. And then something else that resonated with me was just around being the first. And this is, it's very much like the first gen experience, right? Of being the first, which why I think it's so important to host spaces like this where you're just having a conversation, or you take it to people that you trust and you ask them, hey, have you met with anyone about your finances? Or I'm looking for someone. Like, we need to be intentional too about sharing resources and saying, nope, I got your back. Like, let me know what you need. I can share my resource. And we need to be more open to that, regardless of, I think whether we know what help we need, I think it's important just to share, not sure what type of help you need, but let me find someone for you.
Yeah.
Or talk to this person first, and maybe they can guide you in the right direction. You talked a little bit about mindsets. I wanted to talk about kind of like the difference and more in depth, right, of scarcity mindset versus an abundant mindset, maybe like explaining what the two are and how do we know like which one that we live into, or like where do we need to be? I think we can just start with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I think really being able to self-reflect and be mindful of your thoughts really comes into play, because if you're kind of on autopilot, you won't even notice these things, you know? So you won't even notice that you have scarcity mindset and that you could be holding yourself back. And I think one great example is if you catch yourself thinking about what can go wrong, that's scarcity mindset. Versus if you think about, you know, what can go right for you, that's abundance mindset. So I'll just throw out a quick example. Back in 2023, I got laid off from my job. And this was a couple of months after we renovated our house. So we had quite a bit of credit card debt that I used for the renovations. And I was given like, I think it was like 2 months of severance.
Mm.
And I was told I didn't have to work anymore, basically. So I had 2 months of pay. So of course I was upset, you know, at first. I mean, you're getting laid off, right? It's scary. My wife doesn't work. She's a stay-at-home mom. So my family just relies on my income, you know? So, I mean, you can imagine how stressful that can be. But literally within hours, as I thought more about it, I'm like, okay, let me really think about this situation. So I don't have to work anymore, and I'm getting paid for 2 more months. So to me, that tells me, okay, you're putting it in my hands to find another job within 2 months, because I don't have a job anymore, right? I'm not working. So now finding a job becomes my job. And so I basically reframed it and I said, okay, so you're going to pay me for 2 months to look for another job. And I'm motivated to not only find another job, but to make sure that I'm making more money. And that's exactly what I did. I found another job in a better situation, making more money, and I got paid for 2 months to do that. So that's just a small example of, how you can really spiral and go down that scarcity mindset, or you can choose to be in that abundance mindset. Now, of course, it's easier said than done, right? But this is something that I have practiced through meditation and working on my mindset and really working on being in control and mindful of my thoughts, because whatever we speak, our brain tries to make that come to fruition. So
Yeah.
if we're speaking and this is going to go wrong or this is going to happen, our brain literally seeks to make that happen. It seeks to make it come true. So in the same way, if you think, oh, what if this goes right? Or what if this happens? The same way, your brain seeks to manifest that and make that happen. So whenever you start to think that way, you start to see that opportunity comes your way, and people seem to gravitate towards that energy. So that is, just a little bit of a glimpse into how you can see the difference between abundance mindset and scarcity mindset.
Yeah. Thank you for that and for sharing, just being transparent about your own journey. Would you also say that when you operate in that abundance mindset, you're allowing um, just for more growth versus being worried about spending, or maybe penny pinching, or I'm not going to do this because then I won't have enough for that? Whereas if you just kind of let go and really have faith and do the things that you need to do, like the abundance piece will come, I think, too. It's so interesting how like our brain and our what we do really works for us when we change our mindset, because that similar happened to me. I got laid off in late 2023 into 2024, and it was very sudden and I did not get severance. So I was very caught off guard, and I retracted and was very much like, I'm not spending anything. I'm not going out. No one invite me to dinner. And it just put me like in a very scary place.
Yeah.
And it took me like 3.5 months to look for work. And then I left my job willingly this year, and I was the opposite. I took a trip. I was going out. I was, just living life. And I said, whatever happens, happens. And, I landed a new role within less than 2 months. And so I think that, having that mindset, like no matter what there are some things that are reality and bills have to get paid
Yeah.
and all of these things that we have to do. But it really just goes to show how far a positive mindset can go and like manifestation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I had heard a lot of people talk about this before too, and I'm like, okay, like how do you just like visualize yourself to a better life, right? Like, yes, it doesn't just like happen, right? You're not just gonna sit there and visualize good things happen to you and then go sit on the couch and watch TV. No, like obviously you have to put things into action, you have to put work in. But if people see you moving with the right energy and you have that drive and you have the right mindset, like they can feel your energy, and people are just willing to bring opportunities with you or to work with you, or to share opportunities with you. So that is how that works, because again, like that energy is very real, that mindset is very real, and opportunities just seem to come your way. And so when you start moving in that frequency, you start attracting those things.
Yeah. Um, I do want to just shout out if anyone has any questions. You can start thinking about it. I'll ask one more question to Romeo, and then you can put it in the chat, or you can also ask it off mute. But just my last question, Romeo, is maybe for those that don't know where to start, like maybe they don't have a budget, they haven't thought about their values, unsure where they are in terms of like scarcity or abundance, like they really haven't done that work. What do you suggest maybe someone in that situation does? Like what would be like the first or even second step in that situation?
um yeah, so I mean there's a couple steps that I would recommend. So one good step that you can start with is called the money autobiography. And what this looks like is you basically write a short narrative about your earliest memories about money, um, how your parents talked about money when you were growing up, any significant experiences revolving around money growing up, because all of these things have shaped how your mindset around money currently is. Unless you've done work like I have to reshape that mindset, your mindset is whatever was given to you. So if you went through something traumatic, if your parents lost their house at some point or something, you're going to have a much bigger fear-based mindset because of that. So that would be a great step, is to just write that down, and that will really just help you self-reflect and dissect, okay, what is my actual mindset around money and where does it come from? And then you can from there decide, okay, do I want to keep this mindset? Do I want to change it? What does this mean going forward for me? So I think that's a great just first step, because you're just looking to just understand what actually makes up your mindset around money, and where that came from. And another one that I wanted to mention is financial dreams and fears. So this is writing down what are your dreams financially, whether it's something you want to own, somewhere you want to live, a trip you want to take, whatever it might be, and then also your financial fears. It could be losing your house, going bankrupt, whatever. You don't want to avoid these thoughts, especially the bad ones. You want to really self-reflect and think about, okay, why are they there? and really kind of dissect those things and understand both sides of it, both positive and your fears as well, um, because that might be driving a lot of your motivation around money. And if it is more so the fears, is that something you want to continue, um, moving forward?
Yeah. I really love that it's like taking an assessment of self related to our money mindset. Maybe it will uncover some patterns or ideologies that we didn't know we had.
Yeah,
And really, it's challenging us to ask ourselves some questions. I've never done that exercise. I think that's a really great idea to just get to know yourself more.
yeah,
And then you can decide based on that, right? Okay, where do I go from here?
yeah. And the last one that I want to mention is called 7 Levels Deep. So this is a great one for finding a really profound why. I don't know if you've ever heard of saying find your why. This
Mhm.
is something really big for me too. Anything that you're trying to achieve in life, you need a strong enough why to keep you going, because you're not going to be motivated every single day. Nobody is, so you can't just rely on motivation to keep you going. You need a strong enough why. You need strong enough standards for yourself. You need strong enough habits to really pull you through those tough days. So basically, how the 7 levels deep works is, let's say you have a goal of, I want to get to $1 million. Let's just keep it simple. Okay, the first question is, why do you want to make $1 million? Well, I want to own nice things. Okay, why do you want to own nice things? Well, because I didn't have nice things as a child. Again, why didn't you have nice things as a child? And you keep going. So you do that 7 times. And by the seventh time, you tend to get to the root of why you actually want something. So I've done this for myself and surrounding around the finances. And what it really comes back to for me is control. I want control over my life. So again, I don't want a job to dictate what I do with my time, whether I can spend time with my son or not, whether I can go on a trip or not. So for me, it really comes back to control. I want to have as much control of my life as I want. And so that's a big motivating factor for me. I just remind myself of that, and that is, a good enough why to keep going.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love all of those. Um, I think that people can really benefit from that introspective and, learning about self. We do that a lot in the DEI space too. Like, what does your lived experience look like before you can understand how to better support other communities, right? And it's almost like taking that same assessment for your own self. So I really love that approach. Um, does anyone have any questions? Those of you who are on, or comments?
I do. I had a question like, what advice would you give maybe somebody who's afraid of investing, especially like people who are a little bit older, like our parents, for example, that have a negative connotation with investing. Like, what's some advice that you could give on investing in general?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, um, people often think that by not investing, they're safe. And what I will tell you is that not investing is very risky, because you're hoping that inflation doesn't keep rising and devaluing your money. You're hoping that things don't continue to get more expensive. And you're really putting your future in external factors. So I like to reframe it as, like, if I'm investing, I have control, a certain control over that, right? Obviously, I cannot control the market and what it does and all that, but I know that I can get a certain return with the right strategy. And so I have a level of control there. And I know that in the future, I can at least grow my money. And even if costs continue to rise, at least my money is also building on itself. So I like to really frame it that way and show people the reality that just because you're not investing doesn't mean you're not risking something. So that's the way I would put it. So it's better to invest and know that you have some level of control of your money growing versus not investing. And again, you're just relying on, hey, I hope my job, pays me more each year. I hope I can keep up with expenses. I hope taxes don't go up a lot. I hope grocery prices don't go up a lot. You're putting your future sort of in all those external factors.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome advice.
Yeah. I want to add up that I will say the first step will be reach out to Romeo and then reach out to me. I'm a realtor, so if you get your finance straight, then we can talk about investment also in property. So just throwing it out there. So yeah, reach out to Romeo first, and then reach out to me. 2 steps.
Thank you. Is that Ismael?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Honestly, that's a great point, because people think investments, they think, stocks and other forms of that sort. And I don't think property maybe is on top of mind for people, especially right now, right, when things are a little bit unstable. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind for those that are looking for variety in how they invest.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say about investing is, unless you're going to retire like within the next 2 years, you have time on your side. And that's really what is key when it comes to investing, because you're not trying to time the market. Nobody can do that. So time in the market is the most important thing. So even if you think, oh, it's too late to start, no, you can start even in your 50s, even in your 60s. As long as you have some time in the market, that is the most important thing. The longer time you're invested in the market, the better. So that is another key thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for sharing. You're like hardcore dropping gold. I really like, so I my biggest takeaway, I'm already doing you have to budget for every single thing, every single penny that goes in, every single penny that goes out. So I really like that, at least that part I was doing well, and I'm really, really excited to try some of the next steps to just, continue evolving in the similar fashion, to just get to know my why and what my goals are and stuff. I definitely operate a lot on fear, and I know that already, like right off the bat, but just kind of diving deeper and changing that. So I'm really, really grateful for the whole conversation today. I really loved the questions and of course your answers. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate it. That's the whole reason why we're doing this, is to help people and give them a different perspective on finance, because I think there is a lot of stigma when it comes to finance and finance professionals like myself. So I want to educate more people on financial wellness and what that is, because it's really about finding a holistic level of wellness within your finances. Because let's face it, a lot of our finances are very emotional. Again, they're very deeply rooted in emotion, and it has a big impact on our emotions. So, if I want to be a happier, feel more secure, I want to make sure that I understand my finances and how that's affecting my emotions.
Yeah, that's so true. Romeo, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best form of outreach? We'd love to share that with our Sembra community.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Invest with Romeo. In my bio, I have a link to my link tree. And so that has like my email, it has my consultation scheduling link in there. So you can contact me through there. If you want to email me, you can email me at romeonavacoaching@gmail.com. But otherwise, like I said, you can find all my information on that Linktree page. And the programs that I offer are there as well. So if you're interested in finding out more about what I offer, it's there.
Awesome. And we'll drop all of Romeo's information in the description in the YouTube channel. And so you can reach out anytime. And yeah, we hope that this is like just part one or the start to more conversations. And I encourage anyone who's listening to, really find that space for reflection. I think it's so important. And if you need support, Romeo is a resource, and we hope to, keep providing more spaces like this. Any final thoughts, Romeo, or comments?
No, just a couple of thoughts I want to just share. So when we are trying to, achieve anything in life, it doesn't have to be finance. The way I like to think about it is to break it down into habits and a process. So let's just say, a goal of yours is I want to become a healthier person, or I want to lose weight, right? So I like to think of it in terms of okay, what does a healthy person do, right? So they probably eat healthy, they probably exercise, they do certain things to be healthy. And really breaking those down into smaller habits, because I think we tend to get overwhelmed by when we set goals and intentions and we're like, okay, now where do I start? And so I would say start as small as you can. Break it down as small as you can, because if it's too big, you're going to get overwhelmed in a short time period and you're just going to quit. So really break it down into, okay, what habits can I establish? If I want to be healthier, okay, let me start going to the gym 2 times a week. Just go to the gym. Make it a habit of you get up and you go to the gym. Then eventually, okay, I'm going to work out for 20 minutes, and then you just start stacking it little by little. And so it's really about the process, and it's less about like the destination. You really have to focus on the process of becoming the type of person that can achieve the type of goal you want to achieve. So if it's a finance goal, I want to save a certain amount of money. Okay, what type of person is capable of saving that amount of money? That person probably has a budget. They probably are good to sticking to that budget. They've probably developed their money mindset to make sure that they are aligned with those goals. So things like that.
Yeah. I think that's great advice and takeaway, right? Like to start thinking about those small steps, because all the small steps add up to those healthy habits, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's like investing, your money doesn't compound overnight, right? Again, I talked about time. It takes 10 years, 20 years, same thing with becoming more wealthy or more healthy, anything like that. It takes time. So you're not going to be able to do it overnight. It takes those really small steps, doing it consistently over time. That's what gets you to those changes.
Yeah. No, that's really great advice.
Yeah, last thing, I'll just share some resources. So Empower Personal Dashboard is a really great resource. You can link all of your financial accounts there, and it gives you like how much you've spent on certain things. It breaks it down by category, so you can really have a clear picture of like, okay, where's my money going? How much have I spent? So that is great in conjunction with your budget. And it really gives you a clear picture every month of, how you're doing with your finances. Another one is Rocket Money. So that one is really great as well. I think that one even helps you cancel any subscriptions that you don't want, unwanted expenses and things like that. And then another one is an Investopedia, investopedia.com. So they have a lot of educational resources there, whether it's just simple finance stuff or investing as well. So they have a lot of resources as well.
What was the first one you said? Empower.
Empower personal dashboard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's free to sign up. You link all your financial accounts there, and then like I said, you can kind of customize the view and what you see.
Mhm. Yeah, we can link all of these too in the description for folks.
Mhm.
I personally started using Rocket Money, and it even buckets like your spending habits.
Yeah.
It'll notify you when something doesn't have a bucket. And I think I'm paying like $3 a month. So I don't use it like fully. It's just like another resource, I would say, but definitely a good one. And for sure, it does track your subscriptions. And I ended up canceling like a couple when I first downloaded it that I didn't even know I was being charged. So
Yeah.
it really does work.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm like someone who's like going through their statements and checking every transaction, but obviously I know other people aren't doing that. So that's where these apps are helpful.
Literally me. I can't do apps. I actually tried Rocket Money and I was so confused. I was like, I don't like this at all. So everything for me is like paper and pen. I'm opening my bank statement every couple weeks. That's how I get paid, every 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, this is what I like, fun money, and this is how much I'm gonna spend and stuff. And yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, it works. I'm a big spreadsheets person, so I have a spreadsheet for like literally everything because I like to do it myself. So yeah, find something that works for you and stay consistent with it.
Yeah. Okay. We're almost at top of the hour. Anything else? I think these resources were really great addition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to both of you. I think this needs to be talked about more. And I think just with us, but also even our parents, they're heading toward, some of our parents are heading towards retirement and all that. So I'm also just learning, like healing that for myself, but like still trying to heal that for my parents, So thank you for creating this space for us.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for
Thank you,
joining. Yeah. Thank you so much. With that, for those that are tuning in, like I said, we'll drop all of the links and resources for you all. I love the idea of like a generation version for our parents that are going into retirement. I think, wow, like the evolution of that. I mean, I feel like I feel like I need to get my stuff together first before I can
Yeah.
help them. But that's a really great point and definitely noted, I think, for Romeo too. Like my wheels were spinning when you said that. So appreciate that. And thank you for being with us on, a Wednesday evening. Romeo, thank you so much for sharing. I'm like just really in awe of the way that you approach finances and just like your authenticity and just like speaking very clearly and transparently. So really appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the opportunity. Like I said, I really enjoy sharing my perspective, and hopefully it resonates with people and it's helpful.
I'm sure it will. Well, with that, thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the evening.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You.
Thank you guys for
Bye.
joining. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.